Night settles over the Bavarian countryside like a bruise, purple, swollen, tender in its fading light. The war is ending, or so rumor says, but the landscape still smells of burnt grain, of metal fatigue, of soil torn open by boots and tanks. A cold wind hisses through the broken boards of what used to be a farmhouse barn, and in that barn sits a boy, thin as a whisper, knees tucked to his chest, fingers raw from chewing. His name is Lucas Gerhardt, 10 years old, though he looks no older than 7. His ribs rise like the slats of a ruined picket fence beneath his shirt. His mother has been missing since the last bombing. His father was taken to fight a war he didn't believe in. And now the boy waits in the barn's shadows, shivering in the silence that follows the end of everything he once knew. Outside, foreign engines return, deep, guttural, steady, nothing like the frantic coughing of German trucks. These engines belong to men rumored to be monsters, men with white smiles and endless food, or so the other children whisper with voices trembling between fear and secret hope. A boot crunches outside. Then another. Lucas holds his breath, pressing himself deeper into the shadows. Dust fills his nose, dry and chalky. His stomach clenches hard enough to hurt. He has gone 2 days without anything more than a crust of stale barley bread. The barn doors creak open, light pours in, a painful golden flood that makes him squint and recoil. 2 silhouettes stand against the sunset, one tall, shoulders broad, helmet slightly tilted, the other shorter, carrying something like a metal box under one arm. Their uniforms are strange, brownish, green, heavy, unmistakably foreign, American. The taller one, Sergeant James Walker, steps inside first. His boots leave soft prints in the straw. He smells faintly of gun oil and pine soap, a scent Lucas has never known but instantly finds strange and comforting. The sergeant speaks softly, as if addressing a wounded animal. "Kid, you in here?" The boy stiffens. Words twist in his throat but fail to escape. He has been told, indoctrinated, that Americans eat German children, that they force prisoners to kneel for execution, that mercy is not part of their blood. But the tone carries warmth, or maybe Lucas is imagining it, driven half, mad by hunger. The shorter soldier, Private Tommy Hayes, only 19, kneels in the doorway and peers into the dark. Hey there, bud, you alone?" A thin whimper escapes Lucas. Not quite yes, not quite no. Just a sound of desperation. Tommy slowly sets down the metal box, clicks something open, and pulls out a rectangle wrapped in bright paper. Red, white, blue, colors too lively for a country drowning in ash. Lucas watches carefully. Fear and curiosity war inside his chest. Tommy tears off a piece of the wrapper and breaks the object in two. Steam rises into the cold air. Warm bread. Thick, soft, impossibly white bread. The kind Lucas has seen only once in his life, in a shop window in Munich before the war devoured everything. He stares, lips parting. Tommy extends the piece toward him. "You hungry?" Lucas flinches back, shaking his head violently, not because he doesn't want it, but because he wants it too much, and wanting has become dangerous. Wanting means remembering what it felt like to live. Sergeant Walker takes off his helmet and sets it gently on a beam, letting the last golden rays light his tired face. His eyes are sunken but kind. "We're not here to hurt you," he says. "War's about over. You're safe now. Safe." The word is foreign to Lucas, almost mythical. Tommy inches forward and sets the bread on the ground between them. No sudden movements, no force, just quiet offering. Lucas waits until their eyes drift away. Then he lunges, not gracefully, not like a child, but like something starving, and grabs the bread with both hands, stuffing it into his mouth faster than he can chew. Tears spill down his cheeks, streaking dirt with glistening trails. Tommy whispers to Walker, "Jesus, he's skin and bone." Walker nods. "War took everything from these kids. Hell, the least we can do is give something back." Lucas finishes the bread in seconds, but hunger is bottomless after years of deprivation. He looks up at them, lips trembling, as if asking permission to still feel desperate. Tommy reaches for the metal box again. "You ever had ice cream?" he asks casually. The boy tilts his head, confused. "Was ist, Eis?" Krem, he whispers, pronouncing the foreign word like a fragile secret. Tommy freezes, Walker blinks, the Americans exchange a look, one of disbelief and heartbreak. A child not knowing something as simple, as joyful as ice cream. It says more about the war than any ruined city could. Tommy swallows hard. Kid, he says softly, voice thickening, we're gonna fix that. He pulls out the container, frosted metal, still steaming icy vapor in the warm air of his breath. Vanilla, pure, cold, impossibly sweet. Something Lucas has never tasted. Something he cannot even imagine. A world he's never known is about to sit in the palm of his hands. And when he finally takes the first hesitant bite, everything, his fear, his hunger, his smallness in this enormous war will change. The world before the Americans found him is not a world at all, more like a slow, grey unraveling. A place where childhood dissolves into smoke, where days repeat like broken film reels, flickering and stuttering through hunger, fear, and silence. Lucas doesn't remember when the war started, only when it started taking things. The first was bread, then school, then warmth, then voices, then people. He remembers Munich's sky turning black long before sunset, ash falling lightly like snow that burned instead of melted. He remembers the ground trembling beneath his feet as the sirens wailed and his mother's hand gripped his shoulder so tightly it left small crescent-shaped marks. He remembers his mother whispering over and over, "Run, Lucas, never stop running." But running has a way of wearing holes in the soul. The road of wandering after the bombing, Lucas wandered from town to town like a ghost wearing a child's body. Blow, knout houses, broken windows like jagged teeth, charred farm fields. These became his map. By winter he found other children, thin, haunted silhouettes like him. They shared burnt turnips, moldy potato skins, and stories that sounded like nightmares but were simply their lives. One boy, Carl, told him Americans cut off fingers for rings. They keep skulls as trophies. The girls whispered they hate German children most. They make us slaves. Propaganda seeps deepest when fear is the only food, and Lucas, hungry for anything to believe in, absorbed their stories like cold soaking into bones. When the soldiers came the day the U.S. 12th Armored Division passed through his region, Lucas witnessed the approach from a ditch beside an abandoned road. He heard the rumble before he saw them. Clean engines, steady and powerful, nothing like the rattling skeletons of Wehrmacht trucks. He pressed himself flat against the earth, heart pounding like a trapped bird. From his hiding place, he watched American vehicles roll past, jeeps dusted with mud, halved, racks carrying men who talked and laughed as though war had not carved out the inside of the world. He tried to understand how anyone could laugh now. One soldier tossed a chocolate bar to a cluster of starving children. The kids scrambled, fought, clawed. Lucas didn't join, not because he wasn't hungry. He was, but because he believed the rumors. They pretend to be kind, then they catch you. So he stayed hidden, chewing the inside of his lip until he tasted blood. Night in the barn. When night fell, he found the barn. The smell of old straw reminded him faintly of his grandfather's farm before the war-warm summers, lazy afternoons, sunlight turning dust into floating gold. But now the barn felt like a tomb. The air tasted of emptiness and cold. He curled into himself, clutching an old wooden toy horse he'd found half, buried in dirt weeks earlier. Its paint was chipped, legs uneven, tail missing, but he held it like a lifeline. He whispered to it because there was no one else left to whisper to, just tonight. We survived just one more night. The horse didn't answer, but neither did the hunger, and silence was sometimes a mercy. The approach of the unknown. When he heard boots approaching, he almost didn't run. Exhaustion had fused with hopelessness. If the Americans were monsters, so be it. Monsters meant an end, and endings can feel like relief when life is a constant ache. But when the barn doors opened, when the light poured in, warm and amber, when he saw the tall soldier with the kind eyes and the younger one carrying food, something old and fragile inside him cracked. Not fear, not hope, something in between, dialogue between instinct and desperation. His mind shouted, "Run, hide, they will hurt you," but his stomach moaned, "Stay, stay, please." The bread they offered was the first mercy he'd tasted since the war began. Its warmth filled his mouth like sunlight. It softened something in him that had gone hard from months of hardship. He ate it too fast, ashamed but unable to stop. Tears mixed with crumbs on his cheeks. He waited for punishment because kindness always had a price in wartime, but the Americans did not yell. They did not rip the bread away. They simply watched him with eyes that held sorrow rather than cruelty. And then, the question that changed everything. Tommy asked about ice cream. Not bread, not meat, not chocolate. Ice cream, a word bright and cold and pure. A word carrying a world he had never known. Was ist, eyes, creme, he whispered, and the Americans stared at him like they had just heard the saddest sentence of the entire war. A child who had never tasted sweetness, never felt cold happiness melting on his tongue, never held a cone dripping under summer sun, never known a world where treats existed simply because joy existed. Tommy's voice broke when he spoke again. Kid, ice cream it's happiness, frozen happiness. Lucas blinked. He'd never imagined happiness could be frozen. He'd never imagined happiness could be eaten. Toward the first taste, Walker's voice softened. You're coming with us. We'll take care of you. The barn felt less like a tomb and more like a doorway. A doorway into a world he didn't understand. A world full of strange soldiers who smelled like pine soap, who offered warm bread, who spoke gently, who carried metal boxes full of cold miracles. Lucas rose slowly, his wooden toy horse clutched tight in his hand. He stepped toward the Americans, toward the light spilling across the barn floor, toward the first sweetness of his life. The Americans lead Lucas from the barn with a gentleness that unnerves him more than any threat ever could. His bare feet sink into the soft mud outside, and the cold bites at his skin, but for the first time in months he does not feel the night as a predator stalking him. It feels suspended, waiting. Tommy walks a step ahead, glancing back every few seconds to make sure the boy is still there. Walker stays close behind, guarding Lucas the way one guards something fragile, something already half broken. A jeep idles nearby, steam rising from its engine like a great beast breathing in slow, controlled exhales. The headlights spill white gold across the road, and Lucas squints, lifting his hand instinctively. Tommy opens the passenger door. You can ride up front. It's warmer, warmth. A luxury Lucas has almost forgotten exists. He hesitates just long enough to see Walker's steady nod, and then climbs onto the seat. The leather is cracked but soft, and it smells faintly of dust and coffee. The engine's vibration thrums through his legs like a heartbeat. Walker hands him a wool blanket for the cold, the sergeant says simply. Lucas pulls it over his lap, fingers sinking into fibers so thick they feel unreal. German wool has long since turned to burlap, coarse, scratchy, the kind that leaves marks on the skin. But this blanket is soft, almost tender, like something made to comfort rather than merely survive. He clutches it as Tommy climbs into the driver's seat and turns around to him. You'll be okay, bud, I promise. Lucas doesn't respond. Promises are dangerous things. Promises shatter like glass. But Tommy's eyes are soft, steady, full of something Lucas cannot yet name. The jeep rumbles down the dirt road, passing ruined homes, scorched trees, and fields littered with the remnants of war. But as they near the U.S. camp, the landscape begins to shift, not dramatically, just small signs that feel enormous. A lantern glowing steadily in a guard post, tents standing straight and unburnt, a cookfire crackling with the thick smell of meat, actual meat. Lucas' stomach aches so sharply he winces. No German soldier during the last years of war has eaten meat more than once a month. Civilians even less, children almost never. The scent overwhelms him, rich, savory, dizzying. Tommy notices, you'll eat soon. He promises softly. A shameful sound escapes Lucas' throat. Half whimper, half yearning. He hates that hunger controls him so completely. But hunger swallows pride long before it swallows hope. The moment the world breaks open, Tommy parks the jeep beside a large tent with a red cross painted sloppily across the canvas. Walker escorts Lucas inside, pushing the flap aside to reveal a small world that feels impossibly warm. There are cots lined neatly in rows, blankets folded, lanterns glowing with steady yellow halos. A stove in the corner radiates a heat that immediately stings Lucas' cold hands. He jerks them back instinctively. Pleasure still feels dangerous. A medic looks up from a table. "We got another one. Found him hiding in a barn." Walker replies, "Kid's starving. Doesn't even know what ice cream is." The medic's eyebrows rise. Jesus. He kneels in front of Lucas, careful not to move too suddenly. "What's your name, son?" Lucas swallows. His voice emerges as a cracked whisper. Lucas Gerhardt." The medic nods gently. "I'm Doc Harris. I'm going to check you over all right. You're safe here." Safe. Again that word, always that word. Lucas nods, small, hesitant. Doc Harris gives him water first. Real water, clear, cold, not muddy or rationed. Lucas drinks too fast, coughing as it spills down his chin, but the medic only pats his back and refills the cup. Then comes the moment, the one Tommy has been waiting for. The medic reaches into a cooler, one of the strange metal chests filled with ice, actual ice, and pulls out a small paper cup with something pale and soft inside. Lucas stares, white, smooth, cold vapor rising like breath in winter. "What is that?" he whispers. Tommy grins, eyes suddenly bright. "That, kid, is ice cream." Lucas blinks slowly. The word feels unreal. Magical, ice, cream. He repeats it in his head, savoring the shape of it. The medic offers a spoon. "Try it." Lucas' fingers tremble as he takes it. The spoon is cool. The mound of white rests on it like a cloud that decided to freeze rather than float. He brings it to his mouth, touches the tip of his tongue, and the world collapses. Not violently, not painfully. It collapses like thawing snow, melting, dripping, reshaping itself into something new. The ice cream is cold, impossibly cold. His tongue burns and shivers and then blooms with sweetness so gentle, so pure, so overwhelming he gasps. His eyes widen, his breath catches. He has to close his eyes because the feeling is too big for a starved body to hold. The cold softens into milk. The milk softens into sugar. The sugar softens into something he doesn't have a word for. Happiness. Real happiness. For the first time since the war began, something tastes good. Not edible, not tolerable, not necessary, good. A sob rips from his chest. Sudden, raw, unstoppable. Tears spill down his cheeks, hot and uncontrollable. He tries to hide them with his sleeve, ashamed to be crying in front of soldiers. But Tommy kneels beside him and places a hand gently on his shoulder. Hey, it's okay. You've been through hell. Let it out." Walker turns away, pretending not to see his own eyes glistening. Lucas eats another spoonful. And another. Each one unravels another knot inside him. Knots of hunger, fear, loss. The sweetness tells him a truth he did not know he could survive. There is still kindness in the world. There is still something to live for. There is still a world beyond war. The slow unraveling of everything he thought he knew. Lucas wakes on his first morning in the American camp to something strange. Something he has not seen in months, perhaps years. Sunlight without fear. It filters softly through the canvas of the medical tent. Warm instead of harsh, illuminating floating specks of dust that dance like tiny spirits in the air. The blanket around him is still tucked neatly. The cot below him is soft, too soft, like a cloud pretending to be a bed. For a long moment he lies still, waiting for the world to shift back into the familiar shape of danger, but nothing explodes. No boots thunder toward him, no shouts tear the air apart. Just the distant sound of American laughter, deep, warm, startling in its casualness. He grips his little wooden horse under the blanket. It's his last piece of the world before this one, and holding it feels like anchoring himself to something real. A medic enters the tent carrying a tray. Morning, Lucas, morning, as if morning still existed. As if the sun didn't rise under the weight of sirens, Doc Harris sets the tray beside him. On it, scrambled eggs, a slice of buttered toast, half an orange. Lucas stares as if it's a painting, food with color, food with shape, food that isn't burnt or stale or scraped from the ground. He touches the orange slice first. Its brightness feels almost offensive, too bright, too alive. His fingers sink into its softness, and the scent of citrus floods the air. Freshness, sharp, clean, alive. He brings it to his lips, bites, and gasps at the explosion of sweet, sour flavor. It overwhelms him. Everything overwhelms him. Easy, kid. The medic says gently, "You don't have to eat fast. There's more where that came from. More." Another impossible word. In Germany, more has become a myth. Food, abundance vs. starvation. Over the next days, Lucas discovers something new every time he walks past the American mess tent. There are trays of hot food. Actual hot food. Eggs, sausages, stews thick with vegetables and meat. Bread so soft it springs back when he presses it. Butter so rich it glistens like sunlight. He watches soldiers eat casually, taking second helpings, leaving leftovers. Throwing scraps away. The first time he sees a soldier toss half a biscuit into the trash, Lucas feels his breath stop. He's not angry, not jealous, he's confused. Deeply, painfully confused. How can anyone live in a world where food is plentiful enough to waste? He feels a wave of shame for the instinct that urges him to jump after it, to snatch it, to hide with it in a corner like an animal guarding its kill. Tommy notices the tension. He crouches beside him. "You don't ever need to fight for food here, not ever." Lucas nods, but the belief comes slowly. Starvation rewrites the brain, abundance rewrites the heart, too. Unexpected dignity from the enemy. One afternoon, Lucas accidentally bumps into an American officer. His body freezes instantly. Back home, officers were men of thunder and fury. Men whose anger fell like hammers on anyone too slow, too small, too weak. But the American officer bends down and steadies the boy gently. "You all right there, kid?" The softness in the man's voice feels so strange it's almost frightening. I am sorry," Lucas whispers. "No harm done." The officer smiles. He even tousles the boy's hair. A gesture so simple, so human, Lucas nearly cries from confusion. 3. Glimpses of intact America as days pass. Lucas collects fragments of American life through overheard conversations. One soldier talks about his mother's apple pie, describing the cinnamon and the way the crust flakes apart like golden snow. Another brags about beaches in California where the water is blue, not gray, brown like the rivers near Munich. A mechanic describes baseball games in summer, crowds cheering, kids running barefoot, the smell of popcorn in the air. A medic laughs about ice cream flavors: a cherry, peach, chocolate. God, I miss strawberry the most. Lucas listens, stunned. There is a world where children run freely, where cities are unbombed, where stores have shelves full of things, where laughter isn't a rebellion, it's normal. Every story burns and heals at the same time. 4. Gratitude vs. guilt vs. shame. One night, unable to sleep, Lucas pulls out his diary, a small battered notebook he hides beneath his cot. Most pages are filled with cramped writing about fear, hunger, loneliness. But this night, he writes something different. "The Americans are kind, too kind. Why, we were taught they are animals, but they treat me like my mother used to. I feel guilty that I like it, like I am doing something wrong by being safe." He pauses. His next line comes slower. "What if they are not the monsters? What if we were lied to?" That thought terrifies him more than bombs ever did, because bombs destroy buildings, but truth destroys worlds. A whispered confession later that night. Tommy sits beside him at the edge of the cot. "You look like you've got something heavy on your mind." Lucas swallows. I do not understand why you are nice to me." Tommy leans back against the tent pole, exhaling slowly. "Because you're a kid," he says simply. "War ain't your fault. It never is." Lucas looks at his hands, small, scarred, trembling. In Germany, kindness was rationed even more than bread. But here, kindness flows freely. And that is the most confusing thing of all. When kindness becomes the hardest thing to survive by the end of his second week in the American camp, Lucas learns that hunger is only the first wound war gives a child. The deeper wounds come later, quietly, like shadows stretching at dusk. They arrive when the stomach is full, when the hands are warm, when safety is no longer a dream whispered into cold straw. They arrive when the heart finally has space to feel again. Letters from home, or what used to be home. It begins with letters arriving for the German POWs. Men in tattered uniforms held in a fenced section near the far edge of the camp. The Americans hand out mail once a week, envelopes worn thin from travel through a starving country. Lucas sits with Tommy on a wooden crate as the soldiers read their letters aloud. Some read with trembling smiles, some with silent tears, some with blank stares, the news too heavy to hold. One man reads in a hoarse voice, "Our house is gone, your sister is sick, food is scarce, I beg God you come home alive." Another letter says, "Your mother stands in soup lines for hours. We hear nothing about the end of the war. Is it true the Americans treat you well?" That line, the last one, makes the man reading lower his hands and stare into nothing. Lucas watches him, chest tightening. These men are enemies. He has been told this his entire life. But they cry like his father cried when his mother was taken away. They tremble like Lucas trembled hiding in bombed cellars. They bleed the same way, and when they receive extra bread from the American guards, a small kindness, they accept it with shaking hands, looking ashamed. Tommy leans over and whispers, "War turns everyone into someone they're not. Kindness turns them back." Lucas doesn't respond, because something inside him feels like it's splitting. Propaganda vs. lived reality every night. He tries to untangle the knots left behind by the stories he was taught. The Nazis told children Americans were brutes, but the Americans tucked blankets around shivering POW. The Nazis said Americans starved prisoners, but every meal Lucas receives feels like a feast. The Nazis claimed the Allies hated German children. But Tommy ruffles Lucas' hair and teaches him English words. Thank you, friend, food, warm. Truth contradicts lies, but lies are familiar. Familiarity is safety when the world has burned. He writes in his diary, "If they are kind, then why were we taught to fear them? If they have so much food, why were we starving? If their cities are safe, why were ours destroyed? What did we do wrong?" The question hangs on the page like a wound that won't close. The growing bond and its consequences. Tommy becomes something Lucas never expected to have again. Comfort, not quite a father, not quite a brother, something in between, something that fills the hollow spaces the war carved out. He teaches Lucas how to throw a baseball using a stuffed cloth ball. Lucas misses every time but laughs, an awkward, rusty sound he barely recognizes as his own. He teaches him how to say simple phrases in English. "Tommy, this is ice cream." Lucas concentrating hard. "This is ice cream." Tommy laughs. "Perfect." Lucas smiles shyly, cheeks warming, but these moments also birth new guilt. One evening, Lucas overhears two German POW murmuring near the fence. That boy, he laughs with them. He has forgotten where he comes from. He is becoming one of them. The words cut deep. Lucas freezes, unable to breathe. Forgotten where he comes from, becoming one of them. Is he? Does liking warmth and food and safety betray Germany? Does trusting Tommy make him a traitor? Does eating ice cream mean he has abandoned the ruins he came from? Shame coils in his stomach. He walks away quietly, hiding his trembling hands in his pockets. Kindness as psychological warfare. One night, Lucas can't sleep. He lies awake in his cot, replaying the Germans' voices, forgotten, becoming one of them. The tent is quiet except for Tommy snoring softly nearby. Lucas listens to it, comforted but also shaken. His heart is a battlefield and he is losing to both sides. He slips from his cot and steps outside. The night air is cold, sharp, alive with cricket song. The camp glows with lanterns, steady and warm. The smell of wood smoke curls through the air. Lucas walks toward the POW section, where the German men sleep behind barbed wire. Not cages, just fences, and the guards don't shout or strike them. They offer cigarettes and blankets, but even this gentleness feels confusing. One man sits on a log staring at the stars. He notices Lucas and gestures him over. "Why are you here, Jung, with the Americans?" "Aye, they found me. Do they treat you well?" Lucas nods hesitantly. "They give me food." The man smiles sadly. "Of course they do. The enemy's kindness is the sharpest blade. It cuts deepest." Lucas shivers. "They want you to question everything." The man continues, "To wonder if Germany failed you, to wonder if you belong to them now." "I do not belong to them." Lucas blurts out, ashamed of how desperate the denial sounds. The man pats his shoulder. "War makes prisoners of more than soldiers. Remember who you are, Lucas. Don't let kindness confuse you." Lucas returns to his cot that night with a heart heavier than any hunger he's ever carried. Identity in ruins, he lies awake, staring at the tent ceiling. He has two worlds now, one of bomb, doubt, ruins and starvation, one of blankets and ice cream and men with gentle voices. But which world is real? Which world is home? Which world should he belong to? He clutches his wooden horse to his chest. Its chipped paint digs into his thumb, a reminder of where he came from, a reminder of what he lost, a reminder of who he might still need to be. But then he remembers Tommy's laughter, the taste of ice cream, the officer's gentle hand, the orange slice that made his mouth water with life. Two worlds, two truths. They move through the forest like shadows, careful, silent, attuned to every small movement. The flutter of a branch, the creak of old bark shifting under winter's weight, the distant brittle snap of something that might have been a twig or a boot. Marie stayed close to Edward, her breath soft and visible in the chilled morning air. Every few steps, she reached unconsciously for his sleeve, the way someone in the dark reaches for a wall, not out of weakness, but instinct. Fear had a way of turning even the strongest into seekers of something solid. Edward crouched near a cluster of rocks and raised his hand for Marie to pause. "Stay low," he whispered. She knelt behind him. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, but from the tension curling in her stomach. Another gunshot echoed through the woods, closer now, sharper, more deliberate. Edward tilted his head, studying the sound. "That's American," he murmured, "but not close enough to be my unit." Marie's brows drew together. Then who? He didn't have an answer. They pressed forward, weaving through the trees until the terrain dipped into a shallow ravine blanketed in frost. A plume of smoke rose from beyond the next ridge, thin, wavering, the kind that came from a dying fire. Edward's grip tightened on his rifle. "Someone's down there." Marie's pulse quickened. "Friend, we'll find out." He motioned for her to stay behind as he moved forward. She nodded, though she didn't like the idea of him going alone. Edward crept up the ridge, peering over the edge. A small clearing opened below, scattered with footprints and churned mud. At the center lay a wagon, or what was left of it. The wooden frame was splintered, one wheel broken clean off. Supplies were spilled everywhere, blankets, metal food tins, even a few medical crates. Edward's breath caught. Medical crates. He scanned again. Two bodies lay in the snow. Americans. One slumped against a tree, hands limp beside him. The other sprawled on the ground, rifle dropped just out of reach. Edward's throat tightened. They were medics. He stood slowly, raising a hand to Marie. "It's safe," he called softly. "Come down." Marie climbed the ridge, boots crunching against frost. When she reached the top and saw the scene below, she covered her mouth with a small gasp. "Oh God!" The sorrow struck her instantly, sharp and familiar. These men, dead among the very supplies meant to save lives. She hurried past Edward and descended to the clearing, kneeling beside the nearest soldier. "Let me check if—" Edward gently touched her shoulder. "Marie, they're gone." She looked up at him, eyes wet. Her fingers lingered on the medic's sleeve-white arm, and with a red cross. "He was like me," she whispered. "We were enemies by uniform, but not in purpose." Edward nodded slowly. "War doesn't care about that." They examined the scene together. The tracks around the clearing told a story. Messy, violent, rushed. Edward scanned the tree line and pointed. "There were at least 4 men here," he said. "Maybe 5. Americans." He shook his head. "No, boots are wrong. Pattern is wrong." Marie swallowed. "German, maybe," Edward said. "Or deserters. Hard to say." Marie stood and wrapped her coat tighter. The cold seemed heavier now, sadder. Why would they attack medics? She whispered. Edward didn't answer immediately. He studied the broken wheel of the wagon, the torn canvas, the scattered supplies. It looked desperate, not precise, not strategic. Maybe they needed the supplies. He said finally, "People do terrible things when they're starving, when they're cornered." Marie's expression shifted. A realization flickered across her face. They weren't after the wagon, she said slowly. They were after what it carried. Edward looked at her. The medical supplies, yes, she said, and if they took them, they might still be close. Edward sighed softly. She was right. People who were desperate enough to attack medics wouldn't retreat far. They'd camp nearby, hidden, waiting for a chance to regroup or move. He crouched beside the churned snow, touching a set of footprints. "Fresh," he murmured, "maybe half an hour old." Marie stepped closer. "Should we follow them?" Edward looked up sharply. "No, absolutely not. They've already killed 2 men. With just the 2 of us, we wouldn't stand a chance." She lowered her gaze. "I didn't mean to rush ahead. I hate that this happened. They were healers, Edward, not fighters." He softened. "I know." A gust of wind swept across the clearing, scattering loose snow. The bodies seemed smaller now, more fragile. Marie knelt again, brushing a thin layer of frost from the medic's face. "We can't leave them like this." Edward nodded. "We won't." Together, they carried the 2 medics to a sheltered patch beneath a cluster of fir trees. Marie found a torn blanket among the wreckage and draped it gently over them. She bowed her head. Edward removed his helmet in silent respect. When they finished, Marie stood still for a moment, letting the cold sky settle around her. Her voice was quiet. "There is too much death in these woods." Edward exhaled slowly. "Then we'll do our best not to add to it." Marie looked at him, really looked at him, his face now lined with worry, fatigue, responsibility. He wasn't just escorting her, he was protecting her, and she felt it. Before she could speak, a sound suddenly snapped through the air, not a gunshot, a voice, a low, pained voice coming from behind the wagon. Marie's pulse leapt. She grabbed Edward's arm. "Edward, someone's alive." Edward raised his rifle, stepping forward cautiously, but the voice came again. Weak, desperate, "Help, please." Marie's breath hitched. "It's not English," she whispered. Edward frowned. "German?" "No," she said, "not quite." They exchanged a glance. Then slowly they approached the broken wagon, toward the voice that would change everything about their journey. One cracking soul caught between them.